It began like every other quiet Sunday in the small, unsuspecting town of Brookhaven, a place where families left their doors unlocked, where neighbors waved without suspicion, and where the words coming from one man's pulpit felt like the safest thing in the world. But behind the church lights, behind the stained glass glow and the soft echo of hymns, a chilling truth festered. A truth so dark, so twisted, that when it finally came to light, it shattered the town's faith forever. Because sometimes the real danger doesn't come from the streets, it comes from the person standing right in front of you, preaching salvation while hiding a life of unthinkable darkness. And in this episode of Crimes That Shook the Nation, we dig into one of the most disturbing real crime stories ever told. Disclaimer: content is for awareness and educational purposes only. Viewer discretion advised. He was known as Pastor Leonard Hayes, a charming, soft-spoken preacher in his early 40s who led the Holy Fountain Chapel in upstate New York. He was the type of man parents trusted with their children, the counselor spouses confided in, the figure the community leaned on whenever life felt too heavy. But in the late hours, when the congregation went home, when the lights dimmed, when the churchyard grew quiet, Leonard became someone else entirely. The man who comforted the broken by day transformed into a predator of the night, feeding cravings so dark that even seasoned detectives would later describe the case as the kind that stains your soul forever. What makes this story even more terrifying is how it all started. A missing young woman named Elise Turner, a 23-year-old nursing assistant, last seen leaving her evening shift at St. Mary's Hospital in 2017. Elise was kind, quiet, and deeply devoted to her faith. She attended Leonard's church every Sunday, sometimes staying late for prayer meetings. When she disappeared, the town panicked. But no one, not even her own family, imagined that the same pastor who prayed with them, cried with them, and stood beside them at the press conference would eventually be unmasked as the monster police had been hunting. Her disappearance was only the beginning. Over the next 5 months, 2 more women vanished. Nicole Barnes and Caitlin Rhodes, both members of the same church, both connected to Leonard in ways that initially seemed harmless. Police grew desperate. The media stormed the town. And the residents, once united by faith, suddenly found themselves afraid of their own shadows. What they didn't know was that Leonard had developed a method, a precise, calculated pattern, one that revealed a chilling level of control. He chose women who trusted him, who sought his guidance, who saw him as a spiritual father, a predator disguised as a shepherd. But the cracks in his mask began to show the night Nicole's phone was found beneath an old bridge, smashed, but still recoverable. Inside it was one message, a single unsent text she typed moments before she vanished. "I think something's wrong with Pastor Leon." The message ended abruptly. Police began to circle their investigation around Leonard, but he was always one step ahead. His calm demeanor, his flawless alibis, his community influence. Everything about him seemed airtight, until one detective noticed something odd about his weekly schedule. A gap he couldn't account for. A 2-hour window where Leonard claimed to pray alone in the chapel, but surveillance later proved he wasn't there at all. So what exactly was Leonard doing during those hidden hours? Where did he really go after pretending to lock up the church for the night? And why did every trail, every clue, every missing girl somehow lead back to him, even when the evidence refused to speak clearly? The deeper investigators dug, the darker the secrets they uncovered. Secrets buried not just in Leonard's past, but in the very foundations of the church he preached in. It was no longer just a disappearance case. It was the unraveling of a double life. A man adored by hundreds, yet feared by the women who crossed his path at the wrong time. But here's where the story takes a horrifying turn. Just as police began closing in, a 4th woman came forward, alive, trembling, but determined to speak. Her name was Mariah Daniels, and her testimony would expose the truth so shocking that even the FBI would step into the case. Mariah had escaped something unspeakable, something she begged detectives to believe, before Leonard silenced someone else. Her account connected every missing woman and confirmed what investigators feared most. This was no coincidence. This was a pattern, a ritual, a predator in holy robes. And just when you think you understand the extent of Leonard's darkness, a new detail emerges, one hidden inside Mariah's story. Something so chilling, it threatened to shatter the case wide open or bury it forever. If this story has gripped your heart so far, if the twist of a pastor who preached by day and killed by night has shaken you, kindly comment, "I'm following this story." Share this video with everyone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to Crime Chronicles TVc and turn on the notification bell for more chilling, emotional, suspense-filled, real crime stories that will keep you on edge. Because what Mariah revealed next would force investigators to ask themselves, how many victims were there really? And how long had this darkness been hiding in plain sight? Mariah sat in the dimly lit interview room, her hands trembling, her eyes darting at every sound as if Leonard himself might burst through the door. Detectives Hayes and Martinez watched her closely, understanding that whatever she carried inside her could make or break the entire investigation. Her voice cracked open the moment she began, a fragile whisper fighting through trauma. She said Leonard lured her under the guise of private spiritual counseling, a service many women in the church sought when they felt lost or overwhelmed. But the moment she stepped into his office after hours, she felt something was wrong. The door locked behind her, the windows covered, the gentle pastor replaced by a hollow version of himself whose smile no longer reached his eyes. She described how he spoke to her, not with the soft, reassuring tone he used in church, but with a cold, command-like authority. He told her that she was chosen, that God had a special purpose for her, and that she should not resist. The more she spoke, the clearer it became that Leonard had crafted a language of manipulation, twisting scripture into weapons designed to immobilize his victims. In that room, he was not a preacher. He was a captor rehearsing his darkness, and when she pushed back, he became someone far more violent than anyone in Brookhaven would ever believe possible. Detective Martinez gently asked how she escaped. Mariah hesitated, not because she didn't remember, but because the memory itself felt like a wound. She said Leonard made a mistake that night. A noise, a sudden knock at the church's side entrance. He froze, distracted for just a moment. Mariah used the opportunity to run, barefoot, beaten, terrified, through a back hallway she'd never noticed before. She didn't look back. Not once. She simply ran until her lungs burned and her legs felt like breaking. A delivery driver found her by the roadside, shaking and unable to speak. At the hospital, the nurse who evaluated her said Mariah kept whispering the same thing over and over. "He isn't who you think he is." Her testimony shook the detectives deeply, but what came next almost stopped their hearts. Mariah said Leonard kept something in his office, a locked drawer he protected more fiercely than the church's offering box. The only time she saw it open was the night she escaped. Inside, she remembered glimpsing several items, jewelry that didn't belong to him, a torn hospital ID tag, a familiar bracelet she had once seen on Elise Turner's wrist, and something else, a set of old photographs that made no sense, dated years before Leonard even moved to Brookhaven. These items weren't trophies, they were evidence of a timeline far longer and more terrifying than the three missing women. Detectives realized that if what she said was true, Leonard may have been doing this long before Brookhaven ever knew him. He might have been perfecting his predator persona across multiple towns, multiple congregations, multiple unsuspecting communities, leaving no trace except the vanishing of women who trusted their pastor. The possibility chilled them. Could they be dealing with a serial predator who used religion as his camouflage? How many churches had unknowingly given sanctuary to a monster? How many missing person cases in neighboring states might be connected to him? And how many more women were still out there, still unaccounted for? With the urgency rising, detectives obtained a warrant to search Leonard's office. But Leonard, always observant, always 10 steps ahead, sensed the shift in their behavior. Something in their eyes told him the walls were closing in. He suddenly canceled midweek services, something he had never done before, claiming spiritual retreat. But detectives knew better. They raced to the church at dawn, afraid they were already too late. Pastor Leonard's office door was unlocked, his desk emptied, the drawer Mariah mentioned, open and completely wiped clean. A faint smell of bleach clung to the room. He was gone. Panic spread through Brookhaven once again. A town that once trusted him now searched desperately for him. Police issued an alert across state lines, and while officers scoured highways, motels, and nearby towns, Detective Hayes noticed something strange. In the waste bin, beneath shredded paper and stained tissues, lay a torn piece of a map. But this wasn't any map. It was a detailed sketch of an abandoned cabin deep in the woods, miles from the main road, a place no one would think to search without a reason. Was this Leonard's hideout? Or was it something worse? A burial site? As the sun began to set, the detectives gathered their gear, preparing to explore the woods before darkness swallowed everything. Every step closer to that cabin felt like stepping into the jaws of a hidden truth, one the town had been blind to for years. But the question remained, what would they find once they stepped inside that forgotten structure? A terrified survivor? Evidence of more victims? Or the pastor himself, waiting in the shadows? If this chilling journey has captivated you so far, if the transformation of a beloved pastor into a nighttime predator has shaken your sense of trust, kindly comment, "I'm following this case." Share this gripping story with everyone in your contacts. Subscribe to Crime Chronicles TVc and turn on your notification bell for more shocking, suspense-heavy, real crime stories. Because as investigators walked deeper into those woods, one haunting question echoed through the darkness. Were they finally about to uncover the truth or walk straight into his trap? The forest swallowed their footsteps as Detectives Hayes, Martinez, and two backup officers moved cautiously through the thickening dusk. The deeper they went, the more the world behind them faded. The roads, the houses, the comfort of civilization. All that remained was the chilling quiet of the woods and the map fragment leading them toward a truth they weren't sure they were ready to face. Every rustle felt intentional. Every snapped twig sounded like a warning. And in the back of Hayes's mind, one question repeated like a dark echo. How long had Leonard been preparing this place? And what exactly was he hiding here? The cabin finally came into view, an old, warped structure covered in vines, leaning slightly as though exhausted from holding its secrets for so many years. There were no lights, no movement, no signs of life. Yet something about it felt wrong. Too quiet, too still, as if the woods themselves were holding their breath. Martinez whispered, "If he's inside, he already knows we're here." Hayes nodded, signaling the others to circle the perimeter. The front door was secured by a heavy chain, but the window on the right side hung slightly open, as though someone left in a hurry or wanted someone to enter. Inside, the air was thick, stale, and heavy with a metallic scent that made the detective's skin crawl. Their flashlights swept across dusty wooden floors, old canned food, broken furniture, torn pages of scripture scattered like confetti of madness, verses rewritten in ways that distorted their original meaning. And then, the worst part, the wall. A wall covered from floor to ceiling with photographs of women, dozens of them. Some smiling in church events, some in completely different cities, some clearly taken without their knowledge. Elise, Nicole, and Caitlin were there. But so were many others the detectives didn't recognize. In the center of the room stood a table, and on it, a small locked metal box, chained down as though it held something too dangerous to be seen. Martinez used a tool to pry it open. When it finally gave way, a collection of personal items spilled out. A nurse's badge, a silver necklace, a torn scarf, a phone case with faded stickers, and a folded note that instantly made Hayes' pulse spike. It read, "Only God knows the true count." The handwriting was sharp, deliberate, almost artistic, a chilling signature of a man who believed his crimes were a twisted form of divine purpose. Just as they began gathering evidence, an unsettling noise echoed from the far corner, faint, strained, almost like breathing. Hayes raised his weapon, stepping toward a small wooden door near the back. When he pulled it open, he found a narrow staircase descending downward into darkness. A basement. Martinez whispered, "He's been bringing them here." They moved slowly, each step creaking under their weight. The smell intensified. Damp earth mixed with something that made the officers' stomachs tighten. At the bottom of the stairs, their flashlights revealed a sight that froze them cold. A makeshift room, shackles on the wall, torn fabric on the floor, a bucket, a broken Bible, and carved into the wooden beam above, purification chamber. Hayes felt the kind of anger that shakes even seasoned detectives. This wasn't just a hideout. It was a ritual space, a private dungeon disguised behind sermons and holy robes. And as they scanned the room, they realized something else. Someone had been here recently. A cup of water, a still-lit candle, its flame almost dying, and footprints fresh in the dust, leading to a second exit, a small back door camouflaged with bushes outside. Leonard had been here, minutes, maybe even seconds before they arrived. The realization hit them like a punch. He knew they were coming. He had watched them, and he had slipped away into the forest under the cover of darkness. Suddenly, the radio crackled. One of the officers stationed outside whispered sharply, "Movement in the trees, southeast side, someone running." Hayes and Martinez rushed out of the cabin, flashlights slicing through the pitch-black woods, shouting commands as branches slapped against their legs. The air filled with the sound of footsteps, frantic, stumbling, desperate. They chased the silhouette sprinting through the darkness, but the woods twisted into a maze. Every direction looked the same. Every sound echoed unpredictably. And then Hayes spotted something, a discarded black jacket, the same one Leonard was seen wearing on surveillance days earlier. Just ahead, the trail split into 3 narrow paths, and there, scratched into a tree trunk with something sharp, was a message that nearly stopped Hayes' heart. "You're too late." But was it Leonard taunting them, or someone else trying to warn them? The woods fell silent again, too silent. Hayes whispered, "We're not alone out here." Martinez tightened her grip on her weapon. They didn't know if Leonard was hiding behind a tree, watching them, ready to attack. They didn't know if he had fled deeper or circled back. And the worst thought yet, what if he already had another victim with him? A 4th woman no one had reported missing? A woman the world didn't even know to search for. As the detectives regrouped, Hayes felt something beneath his boot, a phone. When he picked it up, the screen flickered with a single notification, a partially typed message addressed to Mom. It read, "I'm with Pastor Leon. I don't feel safe. Please." The rest was unfinished, fresh, meaning someone had been trying to send it within the last hour. The officers exchanged horrified looks. A new victim. They weren't just chasing a fugitive, they were racing against time to save someone still alive. But as they prepared to sweep the forest again, a distant scream shattered the silence, high-pitched, terrified, echoing somewhere far ahead. The sound of someone in pain, someone running out of time. The detectives bolted toward the direction of the scream, adrenaline flooding through them. Yet the deeper they ran, the harder it became to tell where the scream had come from. The woods warped sound, sending it bouncing in every direction like a cruel trick. And in that moment, Hayes felt the crushing weight of a truth he hadn't wanted to face. Leonard wasn't running blindly. He was leading them, controlling the chase, turning the woods into his hunting ground. If this story has held your breath hostage, if the descent into the pastor's hidden world has shaken you, kindly comment, "I'm following this case to the end." Share this story with everyone who needs to watch or hear it. Subscribe to Crime Chronicles TVc and turn on the notification bell for more gripping, chilling, heart-stopping true crime stories. Because as the scream faded into the night, one terrifying question surged through the darkness. Were the detectives racing to rescue a victim, or running straight into Leonard's final deadly ambush? Hayes pushed through the darkness, with Martinez close behind, their breaths sharp and fast as they followed the echo of that fading scream. The forest seemed alive now, branches clawing at their arms, shadows shifting like figures, the wind carrying whispers that made the air feel colder than the night itself. The deeper they ran, the more the tension in Hayes' chest tightened. He felt it, the same instinct detectives develop after years on the job. A sixth sense, a warning. Leonard wasn't fleeing, he was guiding them, luring them. The detectives bolted toward the direction of the scream, adrenaline flooding through them. Yet the deeper they ran, the harder it became to tell where the scream had come from. The woods warped sound, sending it bouncing in every direction like a cruel trick. And in that moment, Hayes felt the crushing weight of a truth he hadn't wanted to face. Leonard wasn't running blindly. He was leading them, controlling the chase, turning the woods into his hunting ground. If this story has held your breath hostage, if the descent into the pastor's hidden world has shaken you, kindly comment, "I'm following this case to the end." Share this story with everyone who needs to watch or hear it. Subscribe to Crime Chronicles TVc and turn on the notification bell for more gripping, chilling, heart-stopping true crime stories. Because as the scream faded into the night, one terrifying question surged through the darkness. Were the detectives racing to rescue a victim, or running straight into Leonard's final deadly ambush? Hayes pushed through the darkness, with Martinez close behind, their breaths sharp and fast as they followed the echo of that fading scream. The forest seemed alive now, branches clawing at their arms, shadows shifting like figures, the wind carrying whispers that made the air feel colder than the night itself. The deeper they ran, the more the tension in Hayes's chest tightened. He felt it, the same instinct detectives develop after years on the job. A sixth sense, a warning. Leonard wasn't fleeing, he was guiding them, luring them. The detectives bolted toward the direction of the scream, adrenaline flooding through them. Yet the deeper they ran, the harder it became to tell where the scream had come from. The woods warped sound, sending it bouncing in every direction like a cruel trick. And in that moment, Hayes felt the crushing weight of a truth he hadn't wanted to face. Leonard wasn't running blindly. He was leading them, controlling the chase, turning the woods into his hunting ground. If this story has held your breath hostage, if the descent into the pastor's hidden world has shaken you, kindly comment. I'm following this case to the end. Share this story with everyone who needs to watch or hear it. Subscribe to Crime Chronicles TVc and turn on the notification bell for more gripping, chilling, heart-stopping true crime stories. Because as the scream faded into the night, one terrifying question surged through the darkness. Were the detectives racing to rescue a victim, or running straight into Leonard's final deadly ambush? Hayes pushed through the darkness, with Martinez close behind, their breaths sharp and fast as they followed the echo of that fading scream. The forest seemed alive now, branches clawing at their arms, shadows shifting like figures, the wind carrying whispers that made the air feel colder than the night itself. The deeper they ran, the more the tension in Hayes's chest tightened. He felt it, the same instinct detectives develop after years on the job. A sixth sense, a warning. Leonard wasn't fleeing, he was guiding them, luring them. His posture calm, almost relaxed, as if this entire terror-filled chase was nothing more than a sermon he had been preparing for years. Pastor Leonard Hayes, the man who once preached hope, stood under the moonlight with the eyes of someone who felt untouchable, someone who believed he was chosen, someone who no longer cared whether he lived or died, so long as he completed what he called his mission. He took one slow step forward, raising his hands slightly, not in surrender, but in mock worship. "Detective Hayes," he said, his voice eerily steady, "you were always meant to be here." The detectives froze, the weight of his words settling like poison in their veins. Leonard smiled faintly, a smile that held no warmth, only calculation. "You can't stop what God has ordained. You think you're here to save her." He tilted his head. "But this is about you." The forest seemed to pulse with tension as Leonard spoke, every tree leaning in, every shadow listening. Hayes raised his weapon and shouted for Leonard to get on the ground. But Leonard didn't move. Instead, he lowered his voice and said something that would haunt Hayes for the rest of his life. "You found the cabin, but you didn't find the roots. There are others, many others, and they're everywhere." Before Hayes could respond, Leonard reached into his coat, and for a split second, time fractured. The detectives fired. A single shot echoed through the clearing. Leonard collapsed, the forest swallowing the sound in a chilling silence. But even as he lay on the ground, his last words slithered through the air like smoke. "You'll never know the full count." Hayes approached cautiously, checking for signs of life. Leonard was gone, the predator who hid behind the pulpit, the man who twisted scripture into a weapon, the monster who preyed on the faithful. The nightmare was over, or so it seemed. The rescued woman was rushed to safety. Backup officers flooded the forest. Evidence from the cabin filled boxes and vans for processing. The townspeople mourned, cried, prayed, and tried to understand how a man they trusted could harbor such darkness. But the investigation didn't end with Leonard's death. Not even close. The photographs on the wall, the items in the metal box, the strange rewriting of scripture, the coded numbers carved into the wood, all pointed to something bigger, something older, something horrifying. And as Martinez pieced through Leonard's files in the following weeks, she found documents that suggested he had moved between churches across several states, always staying just long enough to blend in and to select his victims. Even more disturbing was the discovery of letters, handwritten, unsigned, filled with religious delusions, mailed to Leonard over the years. Letters encouraging him, praising him, guiding him. Letters that suggested he was not alone, that someone else was out there, feeding his madness, possibly even training him. And the final letter, dated just 1 month before Elise Turner went missing, carried a message that made Hayes' stomach turn. It's your turn now. Complete your circle. Then another will rise. As the case expanded into a nationwide investigation, Hayes stared at that message for hours, wondering how deep this darkness truly ran. Was Leonard just one man, or part of a larger network of predators hiding in plain sight, using faith as their disguise? How many victims would never be identified? How many communities were living with a wolf cloaked as a shepherd? And what would happen if another predator, inspired or mentored by Leonard, was already preparing to continue the ritual? This case leaves us questioning human trust, blind faith, and the terrifying possibility that evil sometimes wears a smile we would never suspect. So tell me, what do you think? Was Leonard acting alone, or was he part of something deeper and darker? Could another pastor like him already be out there? Or does the truth lie buried inside one of those letters, waiting to be uncovered? Share your thoughts in the comments, because your opinion could spark the next direction of this investigation, and your voice might help bring light to the shadows that still linger. Stories like this force us to reflect on who we trust, on the masks people wear, on the darkness that can live inside a human heart while appearing holy on the outside. They remind us to stay vigilant, to listen to our instincts, and to never ignore the quiet voice inside that says something is wrong. If this emotional, chilling, thought-provoking true crime story has touched or shaken you, kindly comment, "Justice must continue." Share this video with everyone in your contact list who needs to watch it. Like, follow, and subscribe to Crime Chronicles TVc for more gripping, shocking, heart-stopping true crime stories. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new tale of justice, betrayal, and survival. This is Crime Chronicles TVc, your daily dose of real crime stories. Stay tuned for more gripping tales of justice, betrayal, and survival that will keep you on the edge of your seat.